вам се крстиш. Кръсти вам се крстиш. And that's what makes artilleria. I did a violin demonstration for Cal's class. Massive success. But Tal and Lukey, unbelievably, like class clowns. Pretty bad.
Especially Lukey, I bet.
He's a class clown.
Well, that's like Mitch.
Really?
I don't think Mitch was his kid, but he certainly grew up with him. Mitch was, the center of attention to make people laugh.
That's true.
I mean, he came into
That's
his
true.
own,
That's true. That's true.
you know.
Artilleria.
Dunav za vas.
I am Jeremiah, and my last name is Kristich.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, listening to a live version of Dunav Orchestra from Tamfest 2011. Prijatelji moji, draga braćo i sestre, dobro večer i dobrodošli. We have a lot of the samo pričaju in the back. All right, prijatelji moji, još jednom, welcome to our show. Got time, another episode with legendary, jedan jedini, pa ljudi moji, Velimir Pravica is the name, but a lot of people know him more like Walter Pravica. And then other people know him just like, Wally. Wally Pravica is joining us this evening right here. Prijatelji moji, alo, Wally, jel se čujemo, brate moj dobar?
Kako ne, zdravo. I hvala.
Hvala
na pitanju.
Thanks for coming and joining us this evening. I know this was sort of a last minute thing that we put together, and I'm very happy that you could join us this evening. Legendary Walter Pravica with us tonight. Wally, how are you? How have you been? How's your health holding up, my friend?
All right, a little bit of cabin fever here, but I haven't been crowned by the corona, so I'm trying my best to just stay put and hoping that this thing is over with. This is a pandemic that is just absolutely unbelievable, and it's global, and we see how difficult it is for everybody, to deal with it. So we have to be careful. And so far, thank God, the people that I know, our people in particular, all over, I haven't heard any real bad things about them being hit so hard. And I hope we're just, from that Balkan area, maybe we're okay, maybe we're solid and tough. So it's okay.
I'm glad you're doing okay. You're in the Chicago metropolitan area. Is that correct? Where do you reside today?
I'm in the unincorporated Des Plaines area.
Got it.
Which is a suburb, of Chicago.
Northwest.
Yeah. Glenview, Park Ridge, right in that area.
Sure.
Not about 10 minutes from O'Hare, north of O'Hare.
Yeah. Perfect. So, Wally, I'm going to go ahead and play another song real quick. While we're playing that song, I'm going to ask you to sit tight with me while we try to fix a few technical difficulties that you might be having right now, from what I understand. Sit tight, and we're going to be right back, ladies and gentlemen, with Walter Pravica of Dunav, Chicago. Jel tako?
Jel tako, baš tako.
Baš tako. We're going to sit right back. Stay there. Let's take a look and find out šta da pustimo, prijatelji moji. We're going to play one more song from Dunav, and then we'll be right back.
fast soon. Like it starts out slow, then it gets really fast. Look at it costs money, but yeah, I agree.
There he is, Walter Pravica, Velimir Pravica. Is that correct?
Correct.
Velimir Pravica, prijatelju moj, let's talk about a little bit of history. You have played with the best and
Yes,
the greatest, as they would say. And,
yes, yes.
and I'm
Over
looking at
70
you.
years of playing.
I'm sorry?
70 years of playing. Yeah.
70. That's 70, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So let's talk about it. Well, tell me, Professor, Mr. Pravica, recite mi, when were you born and where were you born? I don't think anybody even knows. I was blown away with what I heard today when you told me.
The way it happened was that we had immigration. This was 1927. We had from the area, Herzegovina, Bosnia, Lika, Dalmatia, we had a shipload of these immigrants took off from Antwerp, Belgium, and crossed the ocean. They were, of course, they communicated with each other very well because the language was common, culture was common, and they, got along very well. So then they were brought to Halifax in this particular run. They were brought to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and dumped out into the stockyards.
And that is Canada, just to confirm.
Canada, right? Nova Scotia,
wow.
Halifax, Nova Scotia, across the border.
Got it.
And they didn't know a word of English. In fact, it shocks a lot of people when I tell them, because things like this, were recounted with my father telling me how it was and others. They did not, and this is the shocking part, they didn't want you to know English. If they heard you speaking English, you were turned back. I could not believe this. I says, Dad, well, why would they not want a person to know English? Well, because our people are smart. Their people were meant to work in the mines, out in the big farms out west and so on. They didn't want them to go into the cities because our people knew life was easier and better in the cities. You got a job, you had a regular income, you finally found a house, things were a lot better, a lot easier in the city. And then there were people that, often were relatives in the cities and you could go and live with them, you see, and things like that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so they didn't know a word of English. And there they were in the stockyards, wondering what's coming next. And finally, the farmers came by. And our people have dignity, they have pride. And I remember my dad telling me this farmer, my father was good size, almost 6 foot, good size, and this farmer came up and he started feeling his muscles of his legs and his arms. My father couldn't tell him anything because he didn't know a word of English. Sure. He says, I didn't know whether I should whack him or what. He said, I didn't know what to do. I was stuck. He said, how dare you feel me like this? Well, of course, why did the farmer do that? Because he wanted strong labor.
Sure.
Okay. And then he beckoned to my father. He said, okay, you come with me. And then my father ended out west working on the farm. And you little by little you pick up the customs, you pick up the language, and you move on that way, and you stay there as long as until you get smart and you find a way of getting into the city. And of course, this is the way it is. But it was hard work. It was dawn to dusk. You work hard, basically for your meal and lodgings. You didn't make much pocket money at that time. This is 1927. Well, eventually, my father he had some relatives and friends up in Noranda, Quebec, okay, where there was a coal mining town. It was a mining town. And of course, you could make good money as a miner and so on and so forth. So he ended up over there. And my mother was there. He had come in. And I was born there, 1933, December 18th. I was born in Noranda, Quebec, in the mining town there. And the guy that was a foreman was actually from Edscona, and I think that might have been one reason my dad ended up there. His name they called him Steliza, actually, and he was well known. He was actually written up in the newspaper as an immigrant. He was the foreman. And his real name was Stolica. And they called him Steliza, you see. But then they had a big strike, coal mine, that they had a big strike then, 1933. It was, a depression time. It was a tough time. And then they wanted you had to sign off. You're never going to this. You're never going. And my dad said, you know what? I've had enough of this. And so I was only a year old, and we traveled down to Toronto, Ontario, which is the capital of Ontario in Canada. Big city. Everybody knows, beautiful city, just off Lake Ontario.
Sure.
And we have a big community of Yugoslavs there, Serbs, Croats, and all that big community, all different ethnics, Ukrainian, you name it, it's there, just like Chicago. And then we were there for a few months, and from then on, we went on to what was called at that time Port Arthur, Fort William, which was off Lake Superior. Okay. Grain elevators there. I remember as a kid, and I was growing up. At that time, I was around like 3. Moving on, I began to remember, see things. Okay, as a kid, and saw some very interesting things. And this is now called Thunder Bay. Yes. Thunder Bay. That's what it's called now. It's not called Port Arthur. It's not that far from Duluth, Minnesota, by the way. Okay. And we have a lot of our people are all through there, into America, Canada, and all that sort of thing. Right. And because I played with Marty, we went through all that area. We call it the Iron Range, Duluth, Minnesota, Ely, you name it, all through there. And the one thing that you notice when you go there, how fresh the air is. When I went up there with Bracha, was that a year ago, as soon as we crossed into that territory, into Duluth and that, you could tell right away, wow, was it ever easy breathing? A lot of oxygen in the air, we just have a lot of forestry and all that. You really notice the difference. Of course, and so what I'm trying to say is I grew up there. It was very nice. It was basically a cabin just off the Lake Superior, and the behind us forest. So we used to go back there with my mother and pick up blueberries and whatever we found in there, and the raspberries that were growing in the wild, and bring them home.
So how long were you there?
Okay, and then I was there till I was about 5.
Okay.
After that, my father traveled to Hamilton, Ontario, which is steel mills. He got a job in the Dominion foundries there, steel. And of course, the pay was good and all that. It was difficult to get settling down, finding a place. But at least we had organizations. We had, in fact, the first Hall, which was just a few houses down on a place that most people know called Beach Road. And Beach Road was the main drive, just very, very close to the Dominion Foundries, was a hall actually built together by Serbs and Croats. Croatians and Serbs built that hall. And this is where they had a tambura, or like it was, they were teaching tambura. They were teaching tambura. So my dad says, yeah, okay, they love tambura. You know, let's face it, you know, we're here to go to the board. You know, these people, this is villages. This is the accordion is a very expensive instrument. We got to understand that. Why wasn't the accordion as prevalent? It's because it's expensive. You could make your own tambura. So very, you know, if you had a little bit of craftsmanship, you could do it. Put some strings on it, and there you have it. And there's no flutes, and that, well, common. And in Vojvodina, it might be a little different because there that's where I learned. I listened to some of these people that came from, they had accordions. Mm-hmm. And they had that very lala style of playing accordion, which is very interesting, very flowery playing. You can really caught your attention. And that's where I learned. But then there was a family, they called the Musica family. Mm-hmm. And they had the two sons that were in the ocean, but they were learning to play the violin.
And this was in Hamilton, right? Wally, this was in Hamilton, right? Canada?
All Hamilton at this point. And they were good friends of ours. So the kids gave up. And Mirko, and it was his name. And Mike there, Ljuban, they gave up on it. So they didn't know what to do with the instrument. Of course, it was like basically a cigar box, you know. It wasn't Stradivarius, Jascha Heifetz, nothing like that, you know. Right. So they said, well, we don't know what to do. Oh, yeah, what to do. And so stanco muzica, he says, hey, ako sin voli. My dad loved the violin. He says, yeah, it was just me. And so my dad got the violin for nothing, you know. He put it in my hands, you know.
Okay.
But remember, this is steel town. This is workers. We didn't have money. Okay, so there was no at that point. I'm only a kid. A chance to get some of the best, teachers like Jascha Heifetz would have had, or somebody like that. Okay, sure. So and we didn't have anybody at the hall who could teach about it. So, but the Ukrainians also had a nice organization. And, ethnic, multi-ethnic, everybody knew everybody, So they built mandolins, they had violins, they even had a violin teacher. So my dad says, let's go and see what they can do. So we went to the Ukrainian Hall, mm-hmm. And the woman, she says, she's a violin teacher. And that's how I started with the violin, learning how to play the violin properly, reading. Well, of course, we learned to read notes at the hall too. Sure. We learned to read notes too. So, but this was now you're learning how to use the violin, the bowing, the fingering, and so on and so forth. And then as I got better and better at it, and so on and so forth. Eventually, we decided, my brothers, they like music. Let's start the Pravica Brothers Orchestra.
So let me stop you. How many siblings do you have, by the way?
Okay. I have two brothers and a sister. They're still all living in Canada.
And who's the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
You are?
I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest of them. And I decided, we should have an orchestra. I was already in high school, at that time.
Okay.
And so we started that way. Sam on the bass, and then Bill Novak, and Bill, we call him Bill. He was on the Bugatti. I taught him the Bugatti because at one time I'd learned the Bugatti in the hall, the Croatian Serb, So we had, so we started up. And we had an accordion player. He wasn't Serbian. He was good accordion player. He was actually Ukrainian, but he was good. He could pick up all kinds of our stuff. I did the singing and all that sort of thing, and violin, and he played violin as well. But he was a good accordion man too. And so we start picking up jobs, at Serve Hall, this and that, wherever, weddings.
And what kind of events are you playing?
We played everything. We played banquets. We played weddings. We played. In fact, it was kind of interesting. We played for a wedding. There was a Yovel Garbage who was in Niagara Falls, was getting married, and he ended up in Indiana, and working at one of the steel mills there, and but somebody came up when we were playing in Indiana, and they said, "Is this you guys way back? This is now 50s. Is this you guys playing for Yova's wedding?" I said, "That's us, for God's sake, boy." I said, "Gee, I look pretty young, man." Compared to, it's amazing when you see yourself way back like that. We played there for their wedding, and
your first event was how old? How old were you at this first event that you ever?
At that time, I was already, when we were starting to get jobs, I was already in high school.
So 16.
Yeah, somewhere in that age. Yeah,
got it.
16, 17, and we started picking up a job here and there.
When you're picking up jobs, are you picking up picnics first? Obviously, someone has
We
to
did play picnics. Yeah, we did play picnics. Yes, we did.
Picnics. So the weddings and christenings came after.
Right.
Saw you at like a church function, maybe?
Yeah. Once we got to be known, there was Joe Luncharge he was kind of prevalent at that time. He had orchestras, and I played with him too.
Who was it?
His name was Joe Luncharge. He's passed, and he was well known in the tambura, and so so Joe, I played with Joe, and you change. People go, they come and go, And I mentioned my brother left, and Bill ended up in British Columbia, and so. So you find other people to play with you, And I kept going. Eventually, and then how I got hooked up with Tilly Kleich and Balkan Serenaders was that I was playing for a number of jobs in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Okay. And we played for quite a few jobs there. And my wife was, at that time, when I met her, was a bridesmaid. It's kind of interesting when you travel around, in an orchestra, you meet a lot of people. And she was a bridesmaid, and I was introduced to her. And of course, she always said, you never really came to me, and somebody had to introduce you. And I said, well, look, I mean, after all, I'm on a job. I can't go around flirting with women,
Sure.
I said, come on. So anyway, it turned out that she was. I was already at McMaster University. At that time, I'd moved on, and in the chemistry program, and then she was at the Greater Niagara General Hospital.
Just to confirm, your major was chemistry.
Yes, that's the major, and she was into nursing. Okay, and that's how we met, and I asked her. She was at the head table there. I said, well, "What song would you like to hear?" She says, "Well, my favorite is La Paloma." I said, "Well, that's not a problem." So we hit off nicely with La Paloma, and she enjoyed that. So then I sat by her table and we talked, and then she said, "Could you drive my dad home and maybe drop me off at the hospital?" I said, "Sure, why not? There's not a problem." And that's how we got introduced and moved on. And then I took her to the hospital and where she was training. And she and then we kind of hit it off. And I said, why don't we go out on a date and whatever. And that's how it went. In the meantime, Tilly Kleich, Balkan Serenaders out of Lackawanna, knew about me and the violin playing, and he loved violin.
So let me stop you for 1 second, Wal. At this time, how many tambura bands were there in that area, in that neck of the woods? And what year are we talking about? Let's talk about a timeline here so people could get a better idea.
This would be like 1955, something like that. Yeah, something in there.
All right. The 50s, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about 1950 something. All right.
Yeah. Right.
So how many bands now? How many tambura groups?
Well, there weren't that many. Like Joe still had his group. Bachakursky would come down from trying to play with the Sabanovich brothers, which I played with for a while. I've been with them too. Sabanovich was down there in Hamilton. And then of course I had my orchestra. And then Tilly Kleitsch invited me to join him. And I kind of feel bad because in a sense I left my guys, I told them, well, I wanted to move on, let's face it, Tilly Clyde's well known, Balkan Serenaders and all that stuff.
So, so tell me about that. Maybe those of us that are younger and are not familiar with the tambura scene, tell me, were they the tambura band of Canada? I mean, I'm sure.
No, Lackawanna, New York.
Right, but I mean, but did they have a lot of gigs because they're right on that border with Niagara, right?
Oh, they would cross over. It was easy in those days. Later, it became tough to bring your instruments over because then immigration would say, "Why are you bringing these instruments?" Well, let's face it, you don't. It's hard to tell them, "Oh, we'll just go in there to join a party or something." Jam fest. No. Eventually they caught on. You're going to make some money, aren't you? Wow. That blah blah blah. So it was a lot harder. But so sometimes they would what happened, the big problem would be like a bass, carry a bass over. So they would probably just cross over and somebody would have a bass in town, that you could use. So you wouldn't have to, So it's but at one time it was like America, Canada was, hardly any difference. You just crossed the border, like right. Indiana, Illinois, it was no big deal. Yeah. But actually it was maybe 45 minutes drive to go from Niagara Falls, cross the Peace Bridge to Buffalo, then and continue up to Lackawanna. Sure. And there you had the mills. And let me tell you, wherever you had mills, steel mills and that, you had bars, like Stepanovich's and others, and you had tambura music, sure. And tambura with accordion or violin or whatever. And eventually I got in with Tilly, and he was quite a guy, and Germanovich there on bass, what a clown. And they had us painted in this one tavern. There's a painter, and he painted us on the wall. The whole orchestra got painted. I got painted as Ryman, clear up there, Tilly, and the rest. Tilly was all tambura. To him, he lived for tambura. He was quite a guy. And he's got a record out. He's got records out. So, his fan was Dave Zukovich.
But at this time, the Popovich brothers are playing in the States.
That's Chicago, yeah.
Right, but did you guys know about each other? I mean, tell me about methods of communication.
Well, the way it happened there, it turns out, interestingly enough, that my wife's family are from Lika. From Lika.
Okay.
And there is a connection through some cousins.
Okay.
That are connected to the Popoviches, and we kind of knew that, that they knew it. That the Popovich that we're talking about was related to Teddy and Adam, was living in British Columbia, I believe, because we had our people all over Canada, United States, and unfortunately he died in those days, the medical. He cut himself with a razor, and that, got an infection and died from that infection, unfortunately. But he was related to the Smilaniches, and that's how we knew about the Popovich brothers, who were famous and made records. What was interesting was that since you know, we're talking about Balkan Serenaders, were well known in the New York area and all that, Buffalo. We got this job in Gary, Indiana. It was a bowling tournament in the 1950s,
Mhm.
and the two orchestras that were playing for that bowling tournament. That's downtown Gary, when Gary was quite a town in those days. You know, we had all
Once
our
upon a time. Once upon
yeah,
a time.
all our people were there. You know, and what was fascinating about that was that it was a beautiful day. We came in, drove in, and I couldn't right now. People know, you know, exactly where these buildings are, but it was the auditorium, the Gary Auditorium was somewhere in there, and we took turns playing with Popovich Brothers, you know, on stage. Popovich Brothers, then us. Popovich Brothers, then us.
Mhm.
And but then at the end of the program, and after midnight, they said, "Hey, why don't you guys go out there on the street and play some polos?" Uh, well, okay. And we start playing, and there's all these people dancing, you know, on the right out there on the street. And here are the cops with the flashers. Here they come. The guy gets out. Hey guys, what are you guys doing around here? You know, playing a. He said, well, you know, it's a bowling tournament. You know, at that time, the mayor was Mondich. You know, Mayor Mondich at that time. You
Mhm.
know, and the two cops, one was Hungarian and one was Italian. Nice guys. And they said, well, you know, the people are complaining here, and you know, we got to move on. He said, I'll tell you what, the cop said, I'll tell you what, we'll give you an escort. Where are you staying? He said, well, we're staying at the Gary Hotel. Well, I couldn't point out where that is now, but there used to be a Gary Hotel there, you know. So we drove over there, and the then the guy that was in charge, I don't know what his name is, the tall fella, he said to the two cops, hey, why don't you guys come up to the Rose Ball room? There's some special room, ballroom there.
Mhm.
He said, while you play, because the one guy was Hungarian, he said, while you play a nice chardas for you. The other two guys says, oh, cops, they said, oh, well, okay, we'll go for a few minutes. Well, you can, you believe this, but it's true. As we're going up, the guy pulls out this bottle of something, scotch or Schlievol or something out of his pocket, out of his vest, and he says to the cops, here. And he had a couple of cups there, and he poured them a couple of drinks, and the two cops, oh, okay, thank you, and they downed that before we hit the top floor, you know, where we were going. Well, they were feeling a little bit there, you know, tipsy there, but okay, I went and played the Hungarian chardas there for them, you know. Actually, it was Kolepi Son, if you're da, 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 da. Oh, they said, that's great. Well, guys, they said, well, it's time to go. It's time to go. All right. They left. And it wasn't long after we heard a message over the microphone or something. They said, well, you know, we just found out from Mayor Mondich that if anybody got any tickets for parking, just tear them up. Don't worry about it. I said, well, that's nice because you had to find a parking spot, and you're not worried about it for the weekend.
So when you were playing with Balkan Serenaders, where were you living at the time?
At that time, I was still in Hamilton.
Still in
It was
Hamilton. You were
before I
traveling.
got married. When I got married, it was then we moved on. Yeah,
So
to the state.
when you say to the States, where?
Well, yeah, that would be in Michigan.
In Michigan.
We came to Michigan. Yeah.
What
Ann
year?
Arbor,
What year was that?
1960.
1960. And
Yeah.
while you were playing with the Balkan Serenaders, where were most of your events?
At that time, since I was with Tilly, most of them were in Lackawanna.
They were.
Oh, most of them, yeah. And then we moved on, like, you know, Youngstown and all those different areas, you know, Alquippa, Pennsylvania, this, that, you know. He was well known, you know, Tilly was well known. But anyway, to finish it up, I will just make this remark about Gary at that time.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
That you could say, and I always say this, you could say, well, the cops shouldn't have had that drink and they should have been. You know what I'll tell you right now?
Tell them.
These guys were human. But not only that, crime was almost zero. You didn't have a problem with people. People enjoyed life. Those were good times. People had jobs. There's no problem. So, they were good fellows. And they joined in for a little bit and then went on and, did their job. And it was a beautiful day. We had a wonderful time in Gary. That was my first impressions of Gary, Indiana. After that, people moved on to Maryville and left. It was Hatcher had taken over and things just went from bad to worse, unfortunately. But that's the way it is. Of course, at the same time, if the steel mills weren't operating, that's another problem. People didn't have money. Because when we played on Elm Street, Elm Street right there, St. George, Elm Street.
East Chicago, right? Is that right?
That's when I was with Marty Capucci.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, I'll never forget. Everybody was working. Everybody had money, steel workers, working at U.S. Steel, whatever. And this old timer, he's sitting there in the corner having a beer, and he's listening to our music. Butch Honest or something for him. And Marty, I never forget his remark when he says, "Моя живи более nego president United States." He's having a better time of life than the President of the United States. Why? Because he didn't care. He had no care, no worries. He had a job. He would come there and enjoy his tambura, and so his music and his companions were with him, had a good time. That was all he would care. And that was something you always remember. You remember how it used to be. And you look today and you say it's a different world altogether. This what's happening today is a shame. It's not something that's good for us, for the country. Anyway.
So tell me about the transition from Baltimore
so then what happened?
Michigan.
What happened was then we got married in 1960.
Congratulations.
1960. And we had Dave Zukovich and his orchestra came by for the wedding, played for the wedding, and Tony Marklin and those guys, which we know them. And everybody had a good time. And then Mira, my wife Mira, she had a scholarship that was given to her from the University of Michigan to pursue public health nursing.
Okay.
She had graduated from Greater Niagara General Hospital, and these grants, if you like, or scholarships were available across the United States and Canada. Okay. So she says, "Okay, great, and I'll continue with chemistry." And that's how in 1960, we ended up in Ann Arbor, and she pursued her public health nursing degree, and I continued with chemistry. Okay. In the meantime, I still had the violin with me, and I hooked up with Matt Gouget, who had started the Wayne Tamburissons in Detroit. And I met the Georgievich family, and there was a violinist who was well known at the time, Stasha Milanovich, who was in the United States, recorded some beautiful music. And they introduced me to Matt Gouget, and then we toured all over, toured the Iron Range, with Matt Gouget, me, the violinist. And I had some very good times with them. Met a lot of nice people. They had scholarships in those days for people who attended Wayne University. Remember, he came from Duquesne. He was one of the originals from Duquesne University Emerson's, and then he formed his own group up there in Detroit. Detroit was really another fantastic city. A lot of things going on there. So we played at the Danube, and then there was the Butchers Club, Jura Bogicevic, the Lala, who played that accordion. I've never seen accordion like that one, where it had two keyboards. I don't know how he manipulated between those two keyboards, but it was one I've never seen. That's the only time I ever saw an accordion like that. At Jura, we played there, and we played across the river in Niagara Falls. Welland. I'm sorry.
Windsor.
Windsor, yes, Windsor. Windsor until we crossed over and played, at the Metropole and the Top Hat and the Anderton, and so I was playing with these guys, and I had no official orchestra of my own at that time. Then we moved on from there, 1966, and moved on to Chicago area.
Okay.
And there and that's where Michael was born, in Chicago, my first son, 1966. And then we moved on to a town called Maywood on the north side for a couple of years.
Did you say Maywood?
Maywood, yeah, at that time was okay. It was next to Melrose Park, right on Chicago Avenue.
Right.
Not very close to River Forest. I had my kids go to the River Forest School, and it's very, very good.
Mr. Pravica,
Montessori.
what brought you to Chicago?
Okay, there was an opening for a professor and to teach chemistry, and also to connect up with the universities in different ways. It was a big opening for me, and I taught chemistry at Wilbur Wright College for 43 years.
Wilbur Wright Community College in Chicago.
In Chicago, on the north side. It was visited twice by Clinton. It was a very good college, very good program. At the same time, when my son grew up, as we raised our kids, because we moved from Maywood, we moved north to an area called Des Plaines, but unincorporated. Very nice area. And then my son, he graduated from the first one, graduated from Maine East, and went on to Caltech, California Institute of Technology, where he graduated with a double major in physics and applied mathematics.
Sure.
And from there, he moved on to Harvard, where he got his PhD. In the meantime, and then eventually went to worked in Manhattan after he graduated, down in New Mexico, and then got a nice position at UNLV in Las Vegas. And he was connected with Argonne National Laboratories, and then I hooked up with him, and at the Argonne, and there was a lot of good research done there. Sure. In the meantime, I was now playing.
Just to confirm, we're talking about Michael, your oldest son. Is that correct?
Yes.
But I want to just take this opportunity and thank Michael very much. I've read a lot of editorials that he's published, and he has been nothing but supportive of our community. And Michael, I know you're watching out there this evening. Thank you.
That is correct. As a matter of fact, it's kind of interesting that you find how life moves on, and his grandson, Nicholas, picked up a scholarship, a $500 award. It was one for the Krajisnici.
Bravo.
Krajisnici award. He got a $500 thing for that because he's related through. I mean, he had to be ancestry had to come from the Kraina. In other words, Lika, and the Smiljanics came from Lika, and it's kind of interesting. They were they lived in this area. Manis Smiljanic, who was his grandfather, Mira's father, was born in a town called Pishach. Pishach. Well, Pishach, you said, well, how the heck did they get a name like that? Pishach. Well, because there was oil coming out of the ground. Apparently, they had some oils. Well, they called it Pishach. It was kind of funny because if you follow the road, I remember this guy named Nitanya Lechach, who you probably knew.
Okay.
He told me, he says they were going down the road. I guess it's kind of a fun thing. You're going down the road, and they said, well, what town is this? This is Pishach. He said, oh, yeah. He says, so they moved on. He says, what town comes next? He says, well, place Smyrna. He says, oh, my God, Smyrna, well, we better not go any further. Ili znaš kuda idemo onda odmah u znaš u dupe, So it was kind of funny. But now Pishach, that is, it has been all named. It's now called Kurbava. Put in and all that's been integrated into a town called Kurbava. That's what it is now in Lika, Croatia, Lika, So,
okay. So now you're in Chicago. What year is this now? 66, 67, 68?
Yeah, right, exactly. And I hooked up with. I hooked up with. Before even Marty, I played with the Medic brothers out of South Bend.
Okay.
So we had quite a few jobs there. We got to be well known. But then, Marty being Marty, Marty was very famous, made right, and so finally, I hooked up with Marty, and we did a lot of play, with Marty Capucci. A lot of people know Marty, so he played everything: weddings, banquets, radio. He was even on television. You name it, Marty was there. And so,
Mr. Pravica, a quick question. What kind of events are you guys playing at this point? You come into Chicago, the metropolitan area, South Bend. Are you doing weddings right away? Are you
everything? Name it. Played a lot at the Rafters, weddings, banquets. We're doing the whole bit, the whole thing.
But did something outweigh the other? Was there a little bit of more private events like weddings?
Well, remember there were, at that time, there were so many things going on. They were happy to have orchestras for even things like, for example, Sunday barbecues, we were playing for so many of those. People, anniversaries. We're doing everything. There were times we we're playing on a weekend, 4 jobs on a weekend. If you can imagine, how can you play 4 jobs? Well, we played Saturday till played Saturday night, and then Sunday, and Sunday after. Sometimes it ended up 4 jobs on a weekend, but that's rare. That doesn't. No, there's not. A lot of it had to do with people having money, people, coming home and working in steel mills. Wherever you had steel mills, they're always happy to have orchestras play for them, around the bar and this and that. So there's always something going on. Always. Rafters, always playing at the Rafters.
Rafters, where was Rafters located for those that don't know?
That's on Commercial, 98th and Commercial.
98th and Commercial, right across the street from the old St. Archangel Michael.
Yeah.
Which moved to Lansing, Illinois, ultimately today.
They are now the Lansing church, yeah. And it was Milan Vukovic, remember, ran that rap. I said to Milan, I said, you had so many orchestras in here. I said, you'd have been a millionaire if you just taped everybody since the 1930s when people were coming in and playing. He said, if you just could have taped all that, you could have made record after record after record. He said, Vukovic playing there all the time. We had all kinds of orchestras playing there.
Tell me something, Mr. Pravica. You come to the Chicago metropolitan area, and how many tambura groups are there at this point? Are there 3, 4, 8, 10?
Well, there's that's a good question. there were quite a few, especially in Indiana. They would have more of those.
Okay.
You know, Roddy Bachani. I'm trying to think of all the different orchestras. They had different orchestras that were coming up. Younger guys.
Mhm.
Panayatovich. They did something. He used to sing. I think he had his. It's kind of murky at this point, but
But were you guys all committed to the bands that you played with? Because what I see a lot now is a lot of freelancing, right? So if you're available to play and you're not booked with your band or your orchestra at the time, would you then join another group at that time? Back now,
well, this is the way it was. It was that as the jobs became less and less, and we were glad to help each other.
Mhm.
I play with Bracho whenever they have an opening, and it's rare to have a conflict. That's rare.
Mhm.
And if it happens, well, it depends on who called you first, so
Yeah.
to speak.
But
But
was the situation back then as well?
the thing was that I was already, with after Marty had departed, he died, and then I had the Dunav Orchestra.
Okay.
We carried on with their tradition. Remember, Dunav goes back before my time.
Let's talk
Uh,
about
yeah, remember we're talking about Mel Dokic's time. He was one of the original. But he was a violin player, well known at that time.
which is
And
that time, Mr.
Mel
Pravica?
Dokic, what's,
What is that time? You're saying at that time.
well, that goes back into the 1930s and on, 40, at least 30. So we're talking about orchestras at that time.
Right.
And Mel Dokic, his father was actually Croatian,
Mhm.
but the father died, and then his father-in-law was Serbian.
Mhm.
But in those days, people didn't make any big deal between Croatian and Serbian. They all spoke the same language, ate the same food, and so an intermarriage is not a problem. They married, so his father-in-law loved the violin, put the violin in his hands, and had Mel Dokic play the violin. He's a great violinist. He did a great job, and on record. And then uh, and then joined up with Marty Capucci, and that was the original way back when. But I think before Marty Capucci, I'm sorry, there was a Dunav Orchestra, which he was participant. Then later came when Mel left. Then came Tony Markolin from Youngstown, Ohio.
Mhm.
He used to play with Dave. Dave died,
Mhm.
and then Tony Markolin joined up, and they were with. Then they had their orchestra, which was Dunav again. Now it was Dunav Orchestra,
Got it.
and so this is even before I came to Chicago. You
Got it.
know,
But
the,
Duna, let's call it Duna 2.0, right? Duna 2.0. That would be the way to
right.
call it at this point.
But,
When was that? When did that come out? What year?
okay, so then what happened was that we went through Marty eventually died. We formed an orchestra for a while with Horace Mama, and Horace Mama, if you remember, he was North Township trustee in Indiana, Hammond, Indiana, and he
Okay.
was also president of their union, the musicians union.
Okay.
And at that time, we were the original Radost Orchestra. Radost.
Did you say Radost?
Rados. And Mike Nanancic, he actually took these guys over there in, what is that, Pittsburgh area? The name, they liked the name, so they incorporated the same name as we had. And I didn't like the idea of having two orchestras with the same name.
Of course.
We could have said Rados Chicago, but eventually what happened, Horst died, he had that, I don't know, something happened. He had an embolism or something.
And
And he
Mr.
died.
Pravica, while you're talking about all this, I'm going to throw a picture up on the screen so people can see who this was. Maybe they'll recognize somebody. There
Yeah.
you go. A
Yeah.
picture of Rados. Is that it?
Yeah, this is, yeah. Now, right here, you can see that Mo Brajak on the bass is helping us out. It would have been Mike Narančić would have been on the bass.
Got it.
The rest are the same. You can see Horst Mama is next to the bass player, then myself, and then we have Mark. Mark died of. He died of a stroke or something. Yeah,
Sorry.
and he's on the Bugatti, not the Bugatti, but the cello.
Got it.
So, except for the bass player, which is Mo Brajak, fantastic bass player.
Mhm.
He's helping us at a wedding, I believe. That was a wedding.
I'd like to thank Danny Danilovich, who had found this picture and sent it over to us.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
He's got a lot of pictures. Speaking of pictures, there's one more of you and him back in the day.
Danilovich, okay, Danny. Good man. Yeah, good man. Hi, Danny, if you hear me.
He does. He says hello to Wally, one of the legends of Chicago, one of the most iconic voices of the tambura world, as well as one of the best violinists in the business. I've had the pleasure of playing with Wally twice. What a thrill! Thank you, Danny Danilovich.
Yeah. Great man, great guy.
So, now, Radost, let's do a timeline. Radost, what year is this now?
Around? Yeah, well, that goes into the 70s.
Okay.
And then what happened is Horst died, and Mike Narančić, he had a bout with cancer. He had to move on. He's down in Florida, still living, leukemia. And then Butch, he was with the Dunav Orchestra, and since we were with the Dunav, since he was with Dunav, he brought the name to me, and then we became Dunav Orchestra with Butch on bass. Okay.
Wow.
And so that's how the name Dunav became part of us, which means Danube River, of course. And Danube is a famous river, of course, the biggest river in Europe. And we have Strauss and everything. All these famous composers wrote about the Danube. I said, well, hey, why not? Dunav, nice name. Right. That's how we became Dunav Orchestra. Yeah.
And how many members of Dunav were there? Of Dunav 2.0?
Four of us, yeah. And then finally we got as people moved on, we got finally we worked out where we are today, because people like Frank Ivanovich died. He was the Bugatti player, and Mike Herlich moved on, and so we finally settled on the core, which is John Mixich, a fantastic bass player. I love to play with him. And then there was myself, and Alex Simic brought in the accordion. And the beauty of his playing is that he knows how to fit in. I've always said, hey, look, there are people that, they're so prejudiced or biased that you can't have accordion in tuba. What are you talking about? It's like if a symphony orchestra, how would you form a symphony orchestra if you didn't have violins and violoncellos and basses and flutes and timpani? What are you talking about? There's no such thing. The main thing is when you bring an accordion player, he's adding flavor. It's a flavor. And everybody brings in, everybody, even if you bring in a flute player, it's not the flute, it's the player. How does he play it? How would you play your accordion? And Alex is one of those guys that can play his accordion, fits in perfectly, and brings in the kind of flavor. Because remember, tonality here is that the voice is when you sing, it's a continuous sound, and accordions and violins have continuous sound, so match very well with singing.
Mhm.
The continuous. The tamburas are great for rhythm and all that sort of thing, and have that touch, which fits very nicely. But when it's organized, brother, and everybody has a good ear,
Mhm. Continue.
flavors, and if everybody brings in the right flavor, I just love bass and bugatti behind me. That if the guys know what they're doing, it makes me feel that much better out than playing the violin. I mean, it helps, encourages me to even do a better job. So, we shouldn't be prejudiced about that.
We've got a few pictures of you with accordion players, and I
Yeah.
posted a couple right now. But can you name this one? Maybe do you know who that is? Once upon a time.
Oh my goodness, I have to think about that. I really, really now, if you ask me, I'm not sure who that is.
That's Uroš Vesmar on the accordion.
I do know. Well, he looks so different when I see him there. Yeah, I know him. Very good. I mean, he played with us. Oh, absolutely.
And Mr. Pravica, I can tell you, you look no different. You have looked the same for the last year. My God. I mean, honestly, I've never seen a person not change, right? So,
I guess some lucky stars watching over me.
yeah.
Hopefully I'll continue like that. And still enjoy playing and all that sort of thing, and having all that good camaraderie with all my friends, people like you, and so on and so forth. I appreciate all that because that's the important thing in life. Let's face it.
Let me ask a question.
Good fellowship, people who appreciate what you're doing. There's nothing like music. Let's be honest. Nothing like music that it's that thing that we all, when we go there and we enter the room and we hear the music, and it elates us. It makes us feel good, and we know we're in good company. That's what it is. There are two things. The things I might mention about just to relate it to this, and that is the following. First of all, if you look at the kingdom in the biological sense, we are considered as part of the kingdom of animals. Okay, but
Mr. Pravica, mi smo životinje.
but
Mi smo životinje. There we go.
Here's what makes the difference. Number one is when the human began to control fire. No animals do that. We do. And I'm talking about our ancestries way back when, thousands of years ago, maybe millions of years ago. When they controlled fire, you can follow that track all the way up to the control of energy and physics and understanding sound waves and things like that. All that can be tracked to the original control of fire energy, steam engines, and all that sort of thing, thermodynamics, you name it. There's the other aspect too, and that is our love of music. Animals, you have pets. A lot of your pets become part of your family. Your pet dies, you cry. It's almost like one of us. My poor dog. I loved it. What can you? But it's not the music. They don't. We don't know how much they understand about music. Of course, they use sounds, but music is what separates us. And all of a sudden, we realize that without music, we're not very good humans. Because as the saying goes, "Kopeva zlo ne misli." You know what I mean? "Kopeva zlo ne misli." And that's really what is. And it's good to have variety. I look at that, the area of Yugoslavia as it was, which you could fit into California. It isn't a big country. It wasn't at that time. And you could fit it into, it was only 2/3 of the size of California at the time it was Yugoslavia. But you know what? It's interesting how much variety in music and whatever came out of that little country.
Sure.
I mean, we play everything from the north to the south. the Macedonian, the Bosnian, the Vojvođani, Slavonci, the Dalmatinci, is the League and Hrvatski, whatever. We play the whole thing,
Sure.
and we love it all. It's all good. It's all good stuff. No prejudice. There's no need for prejudice. Plus, how many songs do we play across the border? How many songs do we love that are Hungarian? So something for puta, Hungarian, and so on and so forth. Polepisan, you name it. How about Romanian? Influenced by Romanian, influenced by Bulgarian, influenced by Italian. Zavatinska, Story. Those are influenced by Italian. Addio mare, addio mare. Addio, it's an Italian word. It shows you we're all interrelated one way or another, but music is what connects us all. And we all love it. It doesn't matter where it comes from, we all love it. We love the rhythms and so on and so forth. And we never stop learning the Macedonian, the Bosnian, so always new stuff coming out, the Vojvođanski story, and so on and so forth. We love it all. And it's what keeps us together. And we need to hang on to that because that's what's important. The music makes us human, This is what separates us from the real animal who really doesn't understand music, unfortunately. And but we do communicate well through music. We do, and that's what we have to remember.
I have a question to ask. If we can go back in time just a little bit, in the 70s and the mid 70s, the boom boom bands, as they are commonly referred to, started coming on into the market, right? And then there was a change, right? There was this live orchestra with a drum set, a little bit of maybe rock and roll and whatnot added into our music. Tell me, did that affect tamburashi? Were tamburashi maybe resentful of that new sound coming up?
I would say no. For this reason, the only thing I would say, if you ask me, and to be honest with you, it isn't the music itself. It was for me, for my ears, too loud, and maybe it was the sign of the times. It was probably everything was louder. Everything was magnified. Remember when we played tamburashi in the old days around the bars, there was no speakers and that, it was there, and
Acústica.
And I think the modern world, if you listen, if you think about it, is confronted with a lot of noise, and so sometimes you make your speakers louder because I asked one guy, so why are you doing that? Why? He said, well, because people aren't paying attention. Well, we didn't really care when we played music because we knew people loved to talk, and at the same time, they would enjoy that music in the background. They love the background. And he couldn't see the sense, which is okay. That's right. But no, I don't see that as a problem. I think that phenomena took place in Yugoslavia. If you went to Yugoslavia, remember a lot of your instruments were in the cellos. You played the cellos. You didn't have all this magnification and everything else. When you went to cities, it's a different thing. And then if you had big audiences, well, you need amplification. You need to amplify. You need the big sound. So I would say here's what hurt tamburashi.
Back then.
What hurt tamburashi was not that. And I told them openly.
Who did you tell? Who did you tell, Mr. Pravica? Who did you tell?
My tamburashi.
Uh-huh.
What the problem is.
Sure.
The problem with tamburashi was this. And I was always very careful with not only the music, but also the language. And a lot of our tamburashi didn't understand. They were Americans and Canadians. And they often sang songs. People would probably say, gee, that doesn't sound too much like the real language. I mean, like grammar, and they were mispronouncing words. I'm very, very careful. If we're going to put ourselves on, like we did, on CDs, DVDs. I tell my guys, try to be precise with the language as best as you can. You're not going to be like the guy that was born there, but at least if you listen to the way I sing this stuff, I think you'd find it hard to find me mispronouncing any of the words. I'm not saying that I sing it exactly like, say, Tozovats or something like that. That's something else. But at least do that. Secondly, make sure that your instrumentation is at a above Selyak level. Don't pretend like all of a sudden you can slap away on anything and get away with it and be half loaded with Slivo or something like that and think that's music. No, you got to try to excel as you move on. Excel in your performance, and I think that's where some of the youngsters, they carried on. They had a good time, and then they just let it go. No, I have no prejudice there as far as that goes. When you're talking about, let's say, Polos, for example, people love that solid beat. I mean, come on, that goes with. That's why you basically have to have microphones, and you have to have that. We do have that, and it makes a lot of difference. It helps with the singing, no question about it. No, I don't have that prejudice. No. Not from that angle. No.
Did you feel that you guys maybe lost some events because they started?
Back then. I think you could argue that there might have been some of that, but then there's always this a large contingent of people that still wanted to have a mix, and you see that nowadays. You see tambura bands.
Yep.
When we play at the various fests. You'll see we're playing, but we'll see also, the accordions and the drums and everything else. Not a problem. I don't see any problem with that. I think that's meeting a need. If people want to hear that, and I have nothing wrong with it. And I think you put that on a CD. I think it's remarkable. Yeah, that's great because you can work it on any level you want. If you want it real loud, you can put it loud. If you want it real low, you can control that. And so that's the only thing that I would say. If I had anything to say about it, I would say my ears are too sensitive if it gets too loud. It hurts my eardrums. It does. Actually, it does.
You've been playing what seems like you've been playing forever, to say the least.
7 years. Yeah, 7 years.
Tell me what and when do you think was the peak of tambura music? When was the peak of tambura music?
I think the peak of tambura music was when the steel mills came to a fruition. In other words, when they were going strong, you had tambura everywhere, and they were going strong. As soon as the steel mills started closing down, all of a sudden people didn't have jobs. Because let's face it, a tambura orchestra is nice when you're talking about a house party or a barbecue in the back. You don't need a lot of heavy equipment. You just go there and your instruments are good enough, basically. And so there was a lot of that. But that's when the steel mills were going full blast. And bars everywhere. You go to Pittsburgh, you had bars everywhere.
Well, let's do a timeline. What year is that? What years are those? I'm a little too young to remember. I wasn't born. When was that?
I think once you start entering into the 80s, you start seeing these steel mills closing down, and into the 90s finally you saw a lot of that. I mean, you had 40 miles of steel mills all along the Lake Michigan there.
Sure.
A lot of that just not there anymore. And you had all these little bars right on Commercial, and so on. So
right there.
Yeah, these were people who would come from the shipyards, and remember the Shipyard Inn and all that. They'd come in there and go to Bukalich's or any of these bars. There are a number of bars all along there. that that were running based on people having money, enjoy a drink at a bar, and so, and then we played weddings where people like to have a mix. Like you'd be a DJ and they'd have a trumpet orchestra play. You've done a lot of those, I'm sure.
Yes.
A number of those. We'd play and DJ would play and blah, 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 and so on.
Tell me, tambura today. Let's fast forward to tambura today. You see the difference. You've been around to be able to see the difference. You're still playing. Halo, ti I dalje sviraš. Halo. Neverovatno da I dalje sviraš.
Yeah,
I veruj mi da smo zahvalni dobrom Bogu for people like yourself who have been able to at least give us a little bit of this, input about what it was like once upon a time and where the changes. But tell me about tambura today. Tambura, well, not tambura in 2020. Let's go tambura pre-COVID, right?
Yeah,
Tell me what's the biggest difference that you see?
Well, I say again, it's as you found out, it's difficult today to have almost what you call a permanent band, in a sense, only in a sense.
Got it.
Like the Popovich Brothers. There was one band, and they were always Popovich Brothers. Now and then they'd have somebody come in and participate, but they're always Popovich. But through my career, it was always it was different. When I played with Marty, it was about 15 years solid. We played with Marty, so that was beyond. After that, as they got older and so on and so forth, then you start getting these makeup bands. And thank God, the band that I'm playing with now, in fact, even Bracha, we're pretty permanent. The only thing is, as I say again, there aren't jobs, to speak of, and the COVID did a lot. But prior to COVID, we were moving along, and I didn't care to play too much. You get to the point where you've had enough, and you got to keep up with learning new stuff. You can't just sit back and just keep playing the same stuff over and over again. Although you gotta blend it in with new things too, and in that sense, Joe Kidden often comes with new stuff, and we pick up things from him too, But again, he doesn't have a permanent band, but he plays with us. And then he's a very good, talented musician. Has a lot of songs under his belt,
and he is definitely a talented musician.
Very talented, and sometimes he comes in with new stuff. We pick it up right away. We have no problem there, and that's what it takes. You got to have people who have talent, who can pick up things fast, quickly, and new stuff coming out. Not necessarily easy stuff like Pashona or something like that, where you got to work. Or I don't know if you know Kamara's Call or stuff like that. Very difficult to play, but we did it. We do it. We play some of the higher level stuff in performance. In fact, we had a standing ovation. This has surprised me when we hit. I don't know where it was exactly. We played down in either it was St. Louis, or if it wasn't in Phoenix, Arizona, when we played Kamara's Call, because somebody had mentioned that to me. We played it. People loved it so much, we got a standing ovation. I was really surprised. And we learned it, and everybody fit in real nice, and we did a nice job on that. It's obviously recorded somewhere, but I don't know, who has that recording. They always record everything.
Did you guys have practices often back in the day? Maybe today?
Unfortunately not. The problem is that everybody has different schedules. Also, remember, we have John Mixich and his son are in Indiana, Mike Tisich, Indiana, Alex Simich, Chicago. I'm up here in Des Plaines. Mm-hmm. Jim Grosha, he's down in South Carolina. So try to get together. We don't. And so we try.
How do you do things? You all learn the new thing on your.
Yeah, we'll see. Here's something on YouTube, and I'll pass it on. And we get together, and and it works. And we were, there was a very nice colo. I don't know if you play it, and then a double colo. Very nice colo. It's got quite a few parts to it by what's his name, Vlada Panovich, the accordion player from RTS, I listened to it. I said, "Oh, that's a great colo." So I learned it, and I kept telling the guys, "Come on, come on, come on!" And sure enough, at St. Salva there when we played there, Alex surprised me. He says, "Okay, I showed the guys the chords, and let's do it." We did it. I was surprised. They really surprised me. And then we played it at Regional. And so that's how we do it. We pick up new stuff as we go along, pass it on, email it to everybody, say, okay, listen to it. And that's a wonderful thing about YouTube. YouTube, you can almost find anything on YouTube today, all kinds of stuff if you want to pick it up. Yeah, the only thing is to pick up what fits the moment, what really grabs everybody. Everybody agrees it's wonderful, good number from all parts of former Yugoslavia.
I'm going to go ahead and play a couple clips real quick. It's you guys performing at the St. Sava Surf Fest in 2011. And we're going to go ahead and play that. And while we do that, we'll come back and do an introduction of who is still part of Dunav and see Kosu, Shtasu, Gdesu, and we'll go from there. How's that sound? Is that okay?
Very good. All right.
We're going to go. Here we go. A quick clip of the Dunav Orchestra performing at St. Sava Surf Fest 2011, folks. Enjoy it. Uživajte. There we go. Just a little bit of Dunav Orchestra in at the St. Sava Surf Fest back in 2011. Wow. Once upon a time, would you say, Wal?
That's about it. Yeah. Well, again, it isn't the same orchestra remember, there are people who no longer with us.
Sure, let's
Right?
talk
Frank
about that.
Ramones.
I'm
Yeah,
going to put
Frank.
the picture up right there. See that
All
picture
right.
on the screen?
Everybody, the only person that's not with us is Mike Ehrlich. You can see him in the background next to the accordion player. The rest of the guys are still part of Dunav. There's John Mixich on the left, Adam Skarlovich next in the background, myself, then Jim Grasha, then John Mixich Jr., and then Mike Ehrlich is out, and then there's Mike Tisic, and then our accordion player star is Alex Simic, and that's our orchestra today. That's today's orchestra.
Orchestra.
Yes. You know, to say again, Jim is down in South Carolina, Adam, St. Louis, and so you know, and John makes it Junior. Sometimes he's working over there at BP, and he's got girlfriends and things, you know. So we understand that, young man. And so this is our core. Yeah, the core is the four of us. Yeah.
Tell me,
Yeah.
did
The core, myself, John Mixich, Alex Simic, and Mike Tisic.
Did anybody ever do this full time and only this?
It's the only time I've ever done this.
No, meaning, did anybody do this full time without having another job?
Make a living from this?
Yeah.
Oh, I doubt it. You're talking about an era. I don't. The problem was this. You have to be very careful with this.
Yes. Go ahead.
Because Marty Capucci, he basically, you know, I hate to say it, but he had to go all the way out to Youngstown and played with Dave Zukovich, and they were doing it on a full-time basis.
I gotcha.
You know, 5 days a week.
Oh, wow.
That was the old days, you know, way back, you know, then in the 40s and that. And then he had to leave his family, and that did not help his family, you know, at all. It was very difficult. So what I'm trying to say is, unless you're one of these big band stars, you know, I don't know if you could do it. I don't know, but I don't think we could. I mean, somebody, I don't think you could live on. You'd have to be some kind of a gypsy or something that knows how to do this. But I don't see how I could do it. I mean, you know, I don't know. See, Bunny, they find they play everywhere. I don't know how they do it. To tell you the truth.
Oh, you know how they do it because they are very talented. That's how they do it.
Whatever. Yes, that's true. I played with them. I know. I'm not knocking them. I'm just simply saying, hey, that's their big thing in life, I guess. You know?
Let's talk about some big names. Who have you played with from the Estrada? Who have you played with that most people would recognize maybe from the old country?
Well, there's
some of the superstars you played with, not counting the superstars that you played with here domestically, but that came over from the old country. Kako bi rekli staro kraja?
Staro kraja. Well, staro kraja would be, first of all, starting way back with Juno Begic, he's from the old country.
Okay.
He played in the Butcher's Club. That was his club, and actually he's from Vojvodina. He's from the old country. And let me see.
Sune, maybe? Ever play with Sune?
No. I wasn't. I think he came to Chicago. I wasn't in Chicago at the time when he came here, or Tozdovets. I think they came out here. But Sveta Maric, we played with him.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was in Hamilton, he came to Hamilton. We accompanied him. He came as a singer, accordion player, but we accompanied him. And I knew Sveta Maric very well from way back then. Very good accordion player, no doubt. Excellent accordion player. I liked the way he played the accordion. And let me see. I knew Stasha Milanovic. He played at the Butcher Club, so I would go there, played with him. He's from the old country. Very good Serbian gypsy. And very good violinist. And let's see who else. trying to think of not that many that I visited some of these concerts when they came over.
Mhm.
Like Bracha Brothers. I remember going to a couple of their concerts. There was one time when we had them play with us, and that was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, when we had that big doing there. He was there. And one of the Bradshaw, I forget which one it was, but he played with us. He's from the old country. And let me see, I can't think of anybody else.
That's all right. That's all right. Maybe our second
But,
interview.
yeah, most of our stuff was off records, and then, as I said, we picked up things from YouTube and all that from these singers.
How many children did you have? We mentioned Michael, but how many children did you have in total?
Well, we had Michael. After Michael, we had Mitch, who unfortunately also was a very smart boy who basically got to the bachelor's degree at Caltech and unfortunately was killed in an accident in Los Angeles, Pasadena, California. Yeah, he was he was going to get into this electrical engineering was what he wanted to do. He's very good. Actually, was very smart. He was with Jet Propulsion Labs in his undergraduate, and they loved him. The scientists loved him, and they would take him out to the Utah, I think the desert in Utah, where they were measuring gravitational waves, and he was their setup man. He was very good, hands-on. Mike was very good theoretical. Also hands-on too now. He's a scientist from that point of view, but Mitch was very good hands-on guy, and died there. The other unfortunate thing was I had my daughter, Christina, beautiful girl, everybody knows, had a terrific future ahead of her. We got her through Yale. She graduated from the University of Illinois with a double major, sociology, psychology. Went on to Yale, got her master's degree there, and then got her JD degree, that's Juris Doctor degree from the University of Southern California, and unfortunately got breast cancer and died of breast cancer. So they had no children. She was married, but had no children. And Mitch had never married. So I have now just the two sons. Michael, of course, you know about at UNLV, and Stephen, he's a high school teacher in St. Charles, lives in Las Vegas, has a beautiful daughter, my granddaughter, Sabrina, beautiful, smart girl. And Mike has three children. Nicholas, as I told you about Nicholas. Natalia, also a very brilliant girl, studied Japanese and took chemistry. I didn't even have to help her. She did fine. I said, anytime you need help with chemistry, just call me. She never called me, but she did fine. Took the AP chemistry. And then Luca, who is their youngest, is finishing up high school. So they all grow up, kids grow up, move on.
Did you guys get to see each other a lot since they're out there?
Not very much. Maybe they visited me around Christmas time, the whole family. I'm talking about Michael's family. They came by.
Good.
And then I'll go out there once or twice a year to see them, and so forth. They have their Slava out there. I go out there to see them.
What is your Slava, Mr. Pravica?
That's the September Slava, September 6th, which is Svetiola. And then when Mike, he's doing it all the time. His wife, Maria, she's the daughter of Dr. Yaranich, who worked for big corporation, Missile Corporation. All that. He graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison with a PhD as an immigrant. Imagine he was an immigrant who came out of the war-torn Yugoslavia. His father was a prisoner, German camp, and his father came to Wisconsin And then he brought his boy over, judo. In those days, it was a lot easier to go through school. You got a lot more help than today. Today, everything's very expensive. Universities cost you a load of money. So anyway, he graduated with a doctorate and went on and was an engineer for them for years. As superintendent became. Then Maria met Michael. They met in Boston. Well, Michael was going to getting his doctorate at Harvard. Maria was getting her doctorate at a university there, which is not Boston University, but one of the universities in the area. Yeah, and then they got married after that.
Tell me, you were involved at the parish. What parish do you belong to now?
Well, I was at Redwood Drive.
Holy Resurrection.
Now, I go there and I go to St. Basil's, which is not far away.
Just for informational purposes, we'd like to acknowledge that the fact that Walter Pravica was president of Holy Resurrection.
Yes, I was.
Multiple times now. Back in the 70s, I believe. I think I saw you like 77-ish.
Yes, that's right. 76. Yeah, that's right.
You took a break and you came back and was president like in the 2000s, right?
That's right. Yeah, you know that. You were there. You were involved. And you know that we had, let's face it. Born in Canada, but very much American. So I always, looked at it from that, from that side of the fence.
Sure.
And I try to make everybody understand that everybody was welcome. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care who you were, you're welcome. The doors are open to you. Come on in, enjoy a beer, and so on and so forth at the bar or whatever, and that is it. No controversy. I wasn't interested in controversy. Controversy, we need to love each other. We need to be true Christians. Christianity means if you're a true Christian, you got to learn to love. You got to learn to listen to even the guy that you're at. We got to listen to him and see what's his problem, and maybe have possible discourse, and try to understand. We're Americans now. America is one of the most multi-ethnic societies on this planet. Come on, you go from New York down to Los Angeles and ask yourself, how many different ethnics do you find along with the natives of this country? And they're all from all over the world. Europe, Asia, Africa, you name it, they're in this country. And yet you could go from Ljubljana down to Skopje, and you're going to find there isn't as much variation as that. There is, but not that much. Okay, let's be honest. America beats them all when it comes to ethnicity. We've done it somehow. And that's why we got to hang in. And I hate to see the problems that we have here. This rioting, this craziness. There's something that's right that has got to turn around and not get too involved in politics. Let's work for the good of everybody. What's important is standard of living, enjoying life, and that's what's important. And not this other. Who knows? You don't know who to believe. A lot of it is fake news. Nonsense. You got to be careful of that, and get brainwashed by stupidity. Come on, we got to hang in, and that's what I said. Wherever we play, you're all welcome. Everybody's welcome. Well, we try our best. If you're Hungarian, we're going to try some Hungarian. If you're Greek, we'll do some Greek. If you're Italian, we'll do some Italian. We'll do the whole thing. If we're going to do even some Slovenian, whatever, we'll do it. We'll find a way to do it. French or whatever, we'll do it. We love you all. Yeah, we love music. We're musicians.
Tell me about playing for a Steve Tessich film called Four Friends.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Yes, that's when
you forget about this if it was so interesting.
Yeah, Marty. Yeah, that's when I was Marty Capuggi, and the guy that joined us was Otsa. If you remember, Otsa played the accordion. Otsa, what was his Tessich? I think was no. He had a short name like that. Otsa played accordion down in South Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And he joined us for the Colo, because we played Colos there. and then we did this. We went and got interviewed. We had they wanted to know if what orchestra would be interested, and then so we went there and were interviewed at the Holiday Inn in Chicago. And
what year was this? What year was this?
Oh, that was with I was with Marty. That was something. Again, the exact year. It was probably close in the 70s, but close to 80, somewhere like 1980, somewhere in there.
You were talking about Terzic, probably, right? Is that who you're thinking of?
Yes. And he joined us and so it was kind of interesting. It was thrilling to see how they put these things together, and make a whole movie out of it. Yeah, and and that was an experience in itself. I wish I could have done it now. I'd be a little more, when you're up in front of the cameras, boy, you're a bit nervous. You feel nervous because you're not used to that. But
that's like early 80s, right? That's a while ago, huh?
Yeah. So but it was an interesting experience. Yes, we have the Four Friends film is out there, and you can I think it can be purchased in the various music stores as a.
It was called Four Friends. Four Friends.
Four Friends. It's in fact for my birthday, I forget. I think it was Mike got me and Maria got me a copy of it, which they purchased through I don't know Amazon or something, wherever you can get that film. It's a full-fledged Hollywood film. Yeah,
good.
Absolutely. A lot of it filmed right here in Chicago.
How do you forget that?
I guess I have to wait to be interviewed, and I thought you got a list of things there. Well, it's interesting you brought that up. Yeah, I forgotten about that. But that was when I was with the Marty Capuzzi Orchestra. Yeah.
We can thank Michael for helping us remind you.
As a sign. It's kind of interesting because Frank Capuzzi was a real nice guy. He was Marty's brother, and he was a very good bass player. And when we were going to do this filming, and actually there was a Roman Catholic church that had a big sort of a enclosed yard area where this filming crew figured that we should do our music there for the sound, which we did that. and Frank is wearing this big overcoat, and he had the bass. And as he forgot that they hadn't put the peg in at the bottom. There's a peg, on which the bass stands. The peg was actually out, and he was walking because he wasn't that tall. He was walking, and the peg got caught in the concrete, and he went right over the bass and broke the hand, the arm. Broke that while we're in the middle of this process. He had to get another bass. But then he, instead of taking it to a real, we could talk about this as humor. He instead of taking it to a real, violin maker or whatever, these people know, he went and bought some horse glue, and he glued that neck on. But never sounded the same after that. You never do that. But he did. He was already pretty well, getting into the old age routine. He was losing his hearing, and he sort of gave it up after that.
Well, I think you had a really good role in there, Mr. Pravica, Professor. Yeah, you were playing one-on-one with the main actor, right?
Yes, that's right.
By the way, the movie is called Four Friends. It's online. It's easy to purchase, and they recorded it at Libertyville too. Is that right?
That's where they did the scene, around the grave. Yeah, that's right. Right. It was the Nogalich family. What was her name? The Nogalich. She participated in that film. That's right.
One of those Nogaliches just passed away just recently.
Which one?
My goodness.
Is that man, the woman, or?
One of the founders of Sveti Stefan Dečanski. on Leland.
Oh, you said the man or the woman?
The female, the wife.
Okay.
If we're
Okay,
talking about the same family, that name was pretty.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I know what you mean. I didn't know, unfortunately. Yeah, I know.
We've come close to an end here, Mr. Pravica. How much more can you play? How much more will you play? How much more can we expect to see you?
Well, let me put it this way. You know, one of the important things that I think it's really good for everybody is to be active. Be active as long as you have, and not only enjoying by playing, it also there's a physical activity involved. And I think you've got to keep physically active, and if you start giving up on things like that, you start aging a lot faster. I'm old enough as it is. I'm going to be 87 December the 18th. But the point I'm making is that they keep telling us, old timers, keep working, keep doing what you're doing. Keep the neurons moving in your brain so that your brain is active. If you sing, you got to remember the words. You got to, and you come out, and the notes and the playing, all that is part of it. So all I can say is, nobody wants to be old, but you're going to get there. There's nothing you can do about that. And all I can say is, and even when it came to teaching, even though I taught 43 years as a professor of chemistry, I really didn't want to even give up, but things got out of control. The administration, everything else. My friends were going. I said, that's enough, 43 years of teaching chemistry. I'm still involved with my son at Argonne, but when things they've slowed down right now, but we'll probably get involved. I'll be with him when that opens up. But as far as the playing, this was my diversion. I'll tell you, there are people that when I was a kid, and I listened to the first time I could hear somebody playing an accordion, it brought tears to my eyes. Imagine that as a kid. I was that affected by it, which means that I'm affected by music. I love it.
Right.
And it's something that it's within me, and I have to express it, and it's a challenge when we have an orchestra and we go out there and we perform for people. I think that I was not going to do it as long as I can. I know Marty kept as long as he could. He almost made 100. He almost made 100. Of course, he didn't in the last few years. He didn't play, but he was always with the music. Music is good for you.
It is.
It can do a lot of good, in terms of health. I think it's good for you to enjoy music. Yes.
Zlo nemysli, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when I call Pebbles zlo nemysli, that's absolutely right, and it's so true. Everybody agrees, it's true.
Ladies and gentlemen, приятели мои, spoken like a true professor. Mr. Pravica, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for giving our community so much.
I hope I've done the right thing for you. for myself, yeah. So that people know who I am.
I want you to know that we are grateful. I'm very thankful, and I know many other people agree. Let me just send a few messages that I wasn't able to put up on the screen tonight. I don't know why. But Stevo Bajic from Lackawanna sends his greetings.
Oh, for heaven's sake, yes.
Many other people have been talking about the good old days. Vaso Manojlovic in Hamilton.
Oh, absolutely. I know Vaso.
Marie Garich Bellotti from LA. She's sending out her love. I just want to say follow them, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us. I think it's very important. You are one of our legends here, and we can't be more thankful, right, to have you here on our show, for raising those kids as best as you could, and I follow Michael's work the most. Like I said earlier, thanks to him. Thanks for continuing to remember Odaklismo.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's
right. Professor, with that, I leave you. I wish you all the best. Any parting words that you want to give all those that are listening and following right now?
All I can say is I love you all. And if you're with me, you're with the music, and we'll all sing together and continue and listen. You know, life's too short not to, be in that mood of love and enjoy, and be there to enjoy. And we're ready to hear you make a suggestion. We're going to follow. We're going to follow and try to meet your needs. There are people that come up and ask songs. Most of these orchestras that play out there, these official orchestras, they have a routine. It's like when I played with the symphony, Northwest Symphony. We had fixed a repertoire for the program. We studied every week, we rehearsed. But when it comes to our kind of music, people come up and ask all kinds of songs.
Sure.
And, we try our best to meet everybody's needs. And if we do, and they like that, then, it makes us feel good too, that we can make people happy and enjoy our music. This is what it's all about. So, again, nothing is better than resonance. Resonance where we resonate with each other and enjoy the thing that really makes us human, which is, as I said again, that aspect of us that is in fact music. And I think musicology will tell us all that that's so true. That is really one of the very important ways that we communicate as human beings with each other. No matter, forget this stuff. The world is moving too fast. Ask yourself. I always ask myself, where are we going to be 500 years from now? Where are we going to be 1,000 years from now? That's what we got to think about. And we've got to pick the right path to get there. And, because, this world is chaotic. We've got to get around that and start enjoying the things that make us real human beings. And I think that music is one of those. And I'm going to carry on with it as long as I can and make people, happy if I can. No question about it. I'm one of those. And my good old buddies that are now in Cumberland, in heaven, one day they end up there with them. That's okay. But some people have to carry on. We need to carry on. You know what? Let's be honest. You mentioned this this new kind of music. Listen, the people still love to bring back memories, bring back some of the old time numbers. They like to hear that. They call it Starogatska pesma. They like to hear those numbers. They still want to hear those. They still want to hear a Teralenka and Kafu Mi Draga and stuff like that. They all love that, and we're there to do that. And we're there to make them happy, and do our best and do the quality. I love quality. I like doing it so that it sounds right. So that everything's, there's nothing better than a nicely coordinated band, that really everybody is feeding in their flavor, and it comes out beautiful. That to me is real music when it's done right. I don't care what you play, but wherever you come from, whatever country you come from, or wherever the ethnic, as long as it's put together right, that's what makes Beethoven and these guys great. They put it together. It was right. But you know what? They were the greatest, and we're doing good. We're not there, but we're doing it for the people. I like folk music. I like this thing that comes out of the ground. Like Haydn himself, a great composer, said, you know what? He got a lot from our people, from the Yugoslav area. You know why? Because their Austrians are saying he's Austrian. Okay, he was born in Austria, but you know what? 5 kilometers across the border into Slavonia, there are whole areas of Haydns. So you have to ask yourself, you're going to tell me that he has a name Haydn, that he might not be related to those people there? I think he is, probably. Of course, genetics would prove that. But of course, he died in the 1700s. So, but anyway, we do contribute our mosaic to the rest of the world as far as our music is concerned. It's there, and it's recorded today. Today it's not like the old days. A lot of this is now, we can hear it on records, DVDs, CDs, and that's really makes it a lot easier today to follow. And that's what I say. My prayers go with you, and let's stick together.
Živjeli na mnoga ljeta, professor. Živjeli na mnoga ljeta. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Walter Pravica. Thank you. Laku noć, profesore, i vidimo se i čujemo se uskoro. Be safe out there, okay?
Doviđenja.
Sve od srca, a što si dala, nikad neću zaboraviti plave oči ljudim ja. All right, Jimmy, make it beautiful. In the twilight, though I'll see you, your eyes crying in the rain. As we kiss goodbye and I knew we'd never meet again. Love is like a dying ember, only memories remain. Hello, Jimmy, South Carolina. To the edges, I'll remember. Blue eyes crying in the rain.